Millionaire slaps his pregnant wife in hospital. The mistress laughed, but her CEO father destroyed him. So hello everyone. Before we dive into today's story, I've got a small favor to ask. Please subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the new videos on our channel. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Also, let us know where you're watching from. Leave your city or country in the comments below. Thank you so much. Now, let's get back to our protagonist. The gray sky hung heavy over the city of Chicago, pressing down like a burden that refused to lift. The cold, white hospital lights flooded the emergency room, and the steady beat of the fetal monitor echoed like a drum amidst the tense atmosphere. Amelia, a pregnant woman in her early 30s, sat by the bed, her hand gripping her swollen belly, her face pale with exhaustion and worry. She had just endured a sharp pain that forced the doctors to insist she be admitted for observation. This place was supposed to be a sanctuary, but no one could have imagined that in a matter of seconds, it would become the scene of a tragedy that left everyone paralyzed. Her affluent husband, Preston Thorne, entered, his expensive suit a stark contrast to his wife's exhausted figure. His eyes were icy, his lips pressed tight, as if containing a rage about to explode. Without uttering a single word of concern, he lunged forward, and his hand struck her cheek with brutal force. The slap echoed throughout the white, sterile room, drowning out even the sound of the machines. Amelia staggered, bringing her hand to her face, then instinctively protected her stomach to shield the fragile life within her. The entire room froze. A nurse carrying a tray of medicine stopped, about to drop a glass vial. The attending physician stared in disbelief. Patients and family members in nearby beds had heard the sickening thwack and crept closer, peering through the slightly ajar door. The atmosphere became so heavy that even every breath sounded loud. Before Amelia could react, a piercing laugh erupted from the corner. Chloe, the mistress, in a striking red dress and crimson lipstick, leaned disdainfully against the wall, arms crossed. Her mocking laughter cut like a knife into Amelia's trembling heart. Her eyes gleamed with satisfaction, as if that slap were the spectacle she had been waiting for all along. An elderly patient whispered to the nurse, "She's pregnant. How could he lay a hand on her?" The nurse swallowed, her hands shaking, but she didn't dare intervene. Everyone knew this man was a millionaire, someone with enough power to ruin anyone's career in the hospital with a single phone call. Amelia continued to tremble. Her fist clenched, her cheek burned with pain, and her heart hammered wildly. Torn between fear and anguish, she turned to her husband, tears welling up in her eyes. With trembling lips, she whispered, "You dare hit me right here, when I'm carrying our child?" The silence returned to the room. The monitor began to beep faster, and the line on the screen turned erratic, amplifying the tension. Unseen by them, a young man waiting for his consultation in the next room discreetly raised his phone and pressed record. The small red light blinked steadily, a silent witness capturing the truth. The millionaire didn't notice. He simply took a deep breath and stood taller with an expression of contempt, as if the slap were nothing out of the ordinary. The mistress laughed again, her cackle echoing against the white walls. Meanwhile, tears streamed down Amelia's cheeks. She gripped her belly tightly and murmured in despair, "Please, protect my baby." And the camera didn't blink, recording every unforgettable moment. After the slap that reverberated through the room, the hospital descended into a stifling silence. Only the urgent beeping of the fetal monitor continued, reminding everyone that within that fragile body was a life that needed protection. Amelia was shaking, holding her cheek, her eyes wide with shock and fear. Her other hand clung to her belly, as if to shield her child from any further blow. A single tear slid down her swollen cheek and fell onto the cold, white tile floor. The ceiling lights made every detail stand out, the redness blossoming on her skin, the strands of hair loose after the impact. She let out a faint sob, pressing her lips together to contain it, but the sound escaped, fragile and undeniable. The young nurse remained paralyzed. Her hands shook so much the medicine tray almost slipped. She backed away, her eyes full of concern, yet immobilized by fear. She knew this man was no ordinary patient. He was a millionaire, someone with enough power to destroy anyone's career in that hospital with a single call. The attending physician remained silent, torn between his duty to protect and his fear of the powerful man before him. Families of other patients in the hallway had also gathered upon hearing the noise. They peered through the small door window, muttering among themselves. Whispers swept through the corridor, every word loaded with indignation. An elderly woman shook her head and quietly told her son, "Hitting a woman is awful enough. Doing it to a pregnant woman in a hospital, that's inhumane." Amelia sank into a chair, her shoulders shaking with sobs. She tried to breathe, but every breath was trapped in her chest, ragged and broken. A single, unanswered thought hammered in her mind. How could he be so cruel? For years she had endured his coldness and hurtful words, but she never imagined that one day, in the middle of a hospital and in front of so many witnesses, he would humiliate her with such a ruthless blow. The mistress still stood, a look of arrogant satisfaction on her face. She watched Amelia crumble in the chair, as if enjoying a play she herself had written. Her laughter rang out again, shrill and cutting, fueling the flames of humiliation. Some witnesses outside the door frowned, unable to bear such arrogance. The air in the room felt stifling. No one dared to speak, but everyone knew a line had been crossed. Amelia was not only a victim of violence, she was being publicly degraded. Her expression of pain, the tear rolling down her face, her trembling hands clutching her belly, it was all being etched into the memory of those who witnessed it. Finally, a doctor stepped forward, his voice firm but cautious. "She needs rest and protection. No one can harm her further." His words cut through the tense air, soft but sharp, a reminder that what had just happened was not a simple family matter that could be hidden. Amelia lifted her tear-reddened eyes, looking around the room. The cold light, the astonished faces, the constant beeping of the monitor. It all wove together into a memory she knew would never be erased. In her heart, she whispered to the life within her, "Forgive me, my son, for making you witness this." Outside, several phones continued to record in silence. A red light blinked firmly, capturing every second. No one spoke, but everyone knew that this would no longer be a secret. After those stifling moments when all eyes were fixed on the wealthy husband, Preston cleared his throat. His face showed no remorse. On the contrary, there was a trace of defiance. He adjusted the collar of his expensive suit, inhaled deeply, as if regaining his composure, and spoke in a low but authoritative voice that filled the room. "Don't exaggerate. It was just a motion of the hand, nothing serious." His eyes coldly swept the room, as if daring anyone to contradict him. Amelia continued to tremble, one hand on her belly, her eyes red and swollen with tears. She tried to speak, but emotion choked her throat. The mistress let out another laugh, sharp as a blade, backing up his excuse. "Exactly. She always dramatizes everything. It was just a little tap, and she acts like she was assaulted." Her words made several people in the hallway frown in disgust. The attending physician narrowed his eyes, although he remained silent, simply observing. Preston continued, "You all need to stay out of my family business. My wife is pregnant. Her hormones are unstable. Her emotions are unpredictable. I was just trying to calm her down, and maybe I was a little rough." His excuses flowed smoothly, as if rehearsed. He was trying to turn an obvious act of violence into a minor accident. His tone reeked of contempt, as if everyone present were beneath him. The mistress tilted her head with a satisfied smile. A young man holding his phone frowned and whispered to the person next to him, "Does he really think anyone will believe him?" That was a hard slap, not an accidental gesture. The other nodded, their eyes burning with indignation. Meanwhile, Amelia gathered the little courage she had left. Her trembling voice rose. "You hurt me. You scared our child. Stop making excuses. Everyone saw what you did." But her words were immediately interrupted. He pointed a finger at her and thundered harshly, "Shut up! Don't embarrass me in front of everyone. You're the one who pushes me to this, always arguing, always making me lose face." The tension in the room thickened. Several nurses exchanged glances, their eyes filled with indignation, but none dared to speak. The millionaire took a step forward. His gaze swept over everyone, reminding them of his power. "I pay for everything here. If anyone dares to interfere, I'll call my lawyer. Believe me, no one in this hospital can afford the consequences." The room sank into silence. No one challenged him. The mistress let out a theatrical sigh and approached, resting her hand on his arm in a sweet voice, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "Don't get too worked up. They just don't understand you." Her smile returned, a public mockery that everyone perceived. Amelia lowered her head, tears streaming down her face. The sting of the slap was still there, but it was his cold, calculated words that truly crushed her. She was no longer just a victim of violence. She was being painted as weak and humiliated in front of countless eyes, stripped of her dignity. In the hallway, an elderly woman shook her head. Her voice trembled, but her words were clear. "It's not the first time, but it's the first time everyone has seen it with their own eyes." The phrase cut through the silence like a knife, revealing a truth no excuse could cover. Suddenly, the heavy hospital door opened with a sharp sound that made everyone inside jump. All eyes turned toward the illuminated hallway. In the doorway stood a middle-aged man. He wore a dark suit, simple yet imposing, and his mere presence radiated authority. His steps were firm, his gaze unwavering, his face weathered by the years, but his eyes were alight with fierce strength. No one in the room recognized him at first, but his confident stride made it clear he was no ordinary man. This was Amelia's father, Mr. Jonathan Sterling, a renowned CEO in the financial world. However, at that moment he was not there as a businessman. He was there as a father who had just seen his daughter suffer. Amelia looked up, and her tear-filled eyes brightened upon recognizing the familiar figure. Her trembling lips whispered a single word, "Dad," a syllable loaded with pain and hope. Mr. Sterling nodded softly. His eyes softened as he looked at his daughter, before hardening again when he fixed them on the man who had hit her. The millionaire hesitated for a second, though he masked it with arrogance. He scoffed. "And who are you to intrude on my family affairs? This doesn't concern you." The mistress lifted her chin confidently, convinced that no one could stop them. The man didn't respond immediately. He walked fully into the room and went straight to his daughter's side. He placed a firm hand on her shoulder to reassure her, and then spoke in a calm but booming voice. "No one has the right to harm my daughter, especially when she's carrying an innocent life inside her." The words hit the room like a hammer blow. Several nurses exhaled in relief, grateful that someone finally dared to confront the powerful abuser. People in the hallway leaned forward, murmuring with expectation, sensing the shift in the air. The millionaire laughed dryly, trying to cover his discomfort. "Do you know who I am? I could buy this hospital in a single day. Don't think your words intimidate me." His voice sounded firm, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt as they met Mr. Sterling's unwavering gaze. The father's lips curved into a slight smile, not of fear, but of challenge. Slowly, he pulled a thin folder from his jacket and tossed it onto the bedside table. The sharp thud made the mistress jump. "You might buy hospitals, but you can't buy the truth. I have all the proof of your abuse and the lies you tried to hide." The room froze again, this time in surprise. The mistress bit her lip. Her mocking smile vanished. The millionaire stiffened, his hand trembling, his eyes evasive. Mr. Sterling stepped closer. His voice rang out like a verdict. "You forget something. Behind her is not just family, there is justice, and justice will never be on the side of a cruel man." The declaration fell like thunder. In the hallway, someone whispered, "Who is he? He looks like a big shot." A nurse murmured, "No, that's the CEO of Sterling Industries, one of the biggest corporations in the country." The news spread quickly, and the hospital's atmosphere changed, charged with a new energy. Amelia remained there, fresh tears rolling down her cheeks. But this time it wasn't just despair. In her tired eyes, a spark of hope shone. Beside her, her father stood like an unbreakable wall, ready to face everything to protect her. The hospital room's atmosphere had become so heavy that the air itself seemed to press down on everyone. Mr. Sterling stood firm by his daughter's side, his gaze sharp as a sword directed at the man who had caused all this. But instead of backing down, the arrogant millionaire sneered, a flicker of defiance in his eyes. He took a step forward. His voice was a low growl. "You think a few threats will make me back down? I have an army of lawyers, and with a single call, anyone who dares to cross me will lose everything." His words reeked of menace. The mistress clung to his arm and smirked, as if to prove they held all the power. Mr. Sterling remained composed, his hand on his daughter's shoulder as an anchor of strength. He didn't raise his voice. He simply replied, slow and steady, "Your money might buy the silence of some, but it will never buy the truth. And when the truth comes out, it will be stronger than any contract you possess." His words brought silence over the room. Several nurses exchanged glances, their eyes full of silent agreement. But the millionaire wasn't finished. He pulled his phone from his pocket and waved it in front of everyone. "I'm calling my lawyer right now. I'll make this entire hospital apologize for allowing strangers to interfere in my personal affairs." The mistress's shrill laughter broke the silence. She added her venom. "And who do you think you are? Just an old man poking his nose into his daughter's problems. We're the ones with the real power here." Witnesses in the hallway began to murmur again. More phones were raised, the red recording lights shining in the window. They knew what they were seeing was no longer a simple domestic dispute. It was evidence, and it had to be documented and shared. Amelia remained seated by the bed, both hands over her belly. Fear was still in her eyes, but now it was mixed with determination as she watched her father stand up against the man who had abused her. Tears still fell, but this time they carried the weight of relief. She was no longer alone. Mr. Sterling gave the millionaire no room to manipulate the situation. He looked him straight in the eyes, his voice firm and unshakable. "You can make all the threats you want here, but you have just become a criminal in front of dozens of witnesses. And what is being recorded now will never disappear." A heavy silence fell again. The millionaire gripped his phone tightly. His fingers trembled despite his effort to hide it. The mistress looked at him, her mocking smile gone, replaced by a spark of worry on her made-up face. Mr. Sterling took another step forward. His deep voice resonated with authority. "You can cancel contracts. You can try to intimidate this hospital, but you cannot erase justice, and justice will be knocking on your door sooner than you think." His words ignited the room like a flame, burning away the millionaire's arrogance. For those watching, the balance of power was beginning to shift. The fear of wealth and influence was giving way to something stronger. The belief that truth would prevail. The atmosphere in the hospital room thickened to the point where every breath felt heavy. Mr. Sterling stood tall next to his daughter, his words still floating in the air, provoking murmurs in the hallway. But instead of backing down, the millionaire exploded. He slammed his phone against the table, rage burning in his eyes. "You dare humiliate me in front of everyone? I'll show you who has the power here." He lunged forward and grabbed his wife's arm as she sat on the bed. The violent yank almost made her fall onto the cold tile floor. The fetal monitor burst into frantic beeps, making everyone's heart race. A nurse yelled, "Stop now! Yeah, she's pregnant! Can't you hear the alarm?" But the millionaire completely ignored her. He squeezed tighter, snarling for all to hear. "You're nothing but a disgrace to me. You've humiliated me in front of everyone. Today, you'll learn your place." The mistress stood behind him, smiling with a twisted delight, her eyes glinting with malice. She even pulled out her phone, recording the scene as if turning his wife's suffering into a spectacle. But her blatant act only fueled the indignation around them. Voices whispered from the hallway. "He's gone too far. And she's laughing? Despicable." Mr. Sterling took a step forward. His voice thundered, cutting through the chaos. "Let go of my daughter. If you don't, all the evidence I have will be made public right now." His words fell like a blade. The millionaire froze for an instant, but his pride forced him to squeeze harder, his grip trembling with rage. Amelia was crying, clutching her swollen belly with her free hand. "Please, stop! The baby! Please, don't hurt my child!" Her plea cut across the room, tearing at the hearts of everyone present. Some in the hallway could no longer stand still. More phones were raised. Lights blinked through the glass as people captured every second. The breaking point came when a senior physician, a man who had remained silent for years in the face of power, finally stepped forward. He forcefully pulled the millionaire's arm away and stood as a shield in front of the trembling woman. "Enough! This is a hospital, not a place for you to abuse your wife. You have no authority here anymore." The room erupted. Mr. Sterling immediately seized the moment, standing shoulder to shoulder with the doctor. His eyes burned, his voice low but commanding. "You've made a spectacle of yourself. This hospital, the world outside, everyone will see exactly who you are." The millionaire's face turned pale, sweat beading on his forehead. The mistress fell silent, her phone trembling in her hand. Her arrogance had vanished. Cameras clicked. Videos continued to record. The hospital room had turned into a stage where the truth was exposed for all. Amelia remained on the bed, her eyes still wet with tears. But now there was a flash of determination in them. She understood that what had just happened was no longer just her personal pain. It had become a public accusation, a truth that could never be denied, forcing her abuser to bow before the light of justice. After the suffocating tension of the previous moments, the hospital room seemed frozen in time. Amelia still sat on the bed, her hair disheveled and her face streaked with tears. However, a different light began to shine in her eyes. It was no longer pure fear, it was determination. She inhaled deeply. Her trembling hand rested firmly on her belly. The constant beeping of the fetal monitor resonated like a drum, as if encouraging the strength growing inside her. Her father stood beside her, his steady gaze giving her courage. A strange silence fell over the room. Everyone waited to see what she would do. Slowly, Amelia stood up. Her legs wavered at first, but within seconds, she was erect, looking directly at the man who had struck her with ruthless arrogance. The room was utterly silent as her voice rang out, clear and steady, with no tremor. "You thought I would stay silent while you humiliated me. You thought that just because I'm pregnant, I would simply endure it. You were wrong. The words cut the sterile air of the room, leaving everyone stunned. A young nurse clenched her fists, as if drawing strength from that declaration. The father nodded slightly, pride shining in his eyes. The millionaire's face twisted. Disbelief was reflected in his features. He tried to sneer, but the corners of his mouth trembled. "What are you trying to achieve? Don't think that just because some people take your side, you can challenge me." The mistress chimed in with a scornful laugh. "You're nothing but a weak, pathetic woman. What can you do besides cry?" Amelia lifted her chin, her eyes burning with a fire never seen before. Her voice grew stronger, cutting through the air. "I can do the only thing you fear most. I will tell the truth. I will make the world see who you really are, and I will never be afraid again." The hallway erupted in murmurs. More phones went up. More recording lights blinked. This was no longer a private argument. It was a public declaration. The father stepped forward, his voice deep, firm, and protective. "My daughter has endured too much. Now it is time for her to speak with her own voice, and I will be here to protect her." The energy in the room shifted. The woman who had once crumbled in tears was now standing tall, her shoulders trembling but firm. She was no longer just a victim. In her eyes, people saw defiance and the reclaiming of her dignity. The millionaire took a half step back. For the first time, his arrogant confidence faltered. The mistress swallowed hard. Her mocking smile had disappeared. The balance of power was sliding away from them. Amelia wiped her tears with the back of her hand. Her voice continued to ring out clearly. "From this moment on, I will not be silent. You can continue to threaten me, but you will never make me bow down again." The declaration broke the silence. Whispers of encouragement filled the room. Some even nodded in approval. The breaking point had arrived. The woman who had been knocked down now stood unshakable, and this time, she would never allow herself to be trampled upon again. The hospital room's atmosphere was still tense, but now the glances toward Amelia had changed. They no longer saw her as a silent victim, but as a woman ready to step out of the shadows. Her silence had given way to determination, and everyone could feel it. Her father advanced slowly. From the leather briefcase he always carried, he pulled out a thick folder, its metal clips tightly closed. The metallic click as he opened it resonated in the room, intensifying the tension. He placed it on the table, his deep voice ringing out like a bell. "All your excuses mean nothing now. This is the truth, and the truth cannot be hidden." A nurse's eyes widened in surprise. People in the hallway craned their necks to peek through the window, the phone lights reflecting off the glass. Everyone wanted to know what was inside that folder. The father opened it, pulling out photographs of old bruises on his daughter's body. The images were heartbreaking, purple marks, handprints, undeniable proof that this was not the first time. Then he spread out printed messages, revealing the millionaire's controlling and threatening words. "If you dare speak, I'll take the baby. If you defy me, you'll leave with nothing." Each line was like a knife tearing through the room, exposing the ugly truth. The room was stunned. The mistress turned pale, her phone trembling in her hand. Her scornful laughter was gone. The millionaire stammered, his throat constricted, his voice broken. He tried to find words, but only managed a weak denial. "It's all just a misunderstanding. Everyone knows women exaggerate." The father immediately interrupted him, his voice cold as steel. "Are you really going to deny clear evidence? These are not just words. They are images, messages, proof that cannot be denied." Amelia, now serene, stood tall next to her father. She raised her head, and her voice carried throughout the room. "You always thought I would keep quiet. You thought your money would cover everything up. But today, you won't get away with it. Everything has been recorded, and everyone here has witnessed it." The hallway erupted in murmurs. One voice hissed furiously, "It wasn't the first time. He's been doing this for years." Another added, "He has no escape now." The father pulled out a business card and placed it firmly in front of the millionaire. "It seems you forgot something. I am not just her father. I am the CEO of the corporation you have been begging to work with, and from this moment on, every door will be closed to you." The words struck like lightning. The millionaire's body went slack, sweat streaming down his face. The mistress took a step back, her face pale, unable to utter a word. Everyone in the room understood. The truth had been completely exposed. There was no place left to hide, and no excuse could save the man who had once been so arrogant before them all. After the evidence was laid bare, the atmosphere in the hospital room became heavier than ever. All eyes were on the millionaire. His face had turned ashen. His hand gripped his phone tightly, but his trembling fingers could no longer sustain the arrogance he once displayed. The mistress stood beside him, biting her lip, her composure shattered. The scornful smile she once wore had completely disappeared. The whispers in the hallway grew louder. Witnesses murmured that he was an abuser, that the truth had been recorded and would soon spread. A young man whispered to his friend, "If this hits social media, his career is over." His friend nodded, eyes fixed on the flashing red light of the phone that was still recording. Then, the millionaire's phone vibrated violently. Missed calls and messages from business partners lit up the screen. He opened them only to find cold notifications. "We are forced to suspend the contract. We regret to inform you, we cannot continue the association under these circumstances." His face lost all color. Sweat ran down his temples. The father remained firm next to his daughter, his voice serene, but resonant. "You thought money could buy everything. But you forgot that reputation and integrity are the true foundations of success. You have destroyed everything you built with your own hands." Several nurses subtly nodded. Their eyes no longer showed fear, but contempt for the man who had once walked with such arrogance. The mistress tugged at his arm, whispering desperately, "Let's go now. Don't stay here any longer." But the millionaire roughly pulled his hand away, his face contorted with panic. "No, they can't do this to me. I'm the one with the power," he screamed. But his voice cracked, stripped of its usual authority. A senior physician finally spoke, his tone calm but firm. "You have no power here. We will immediately notify the police. This is domestic violence, confirmed by witnesses and evidence." His words carried the weight of a judgment, freezing the room in silence. Moments later, 2 hospital security guards entered. They positioned themselves on both sides of the millionaire, their gaze severe. "Sir, you'll have to come with us, and cooperate with the investigation." The firmness of their words caused panic to reflect on his face. He staggered backward, trying to resist, but the undeniable truth left him powerless. The mistress backed toward the door, desperate to escape, but the crowd in the hallway had already gathered, blocking her exit. Several phones were pointed at them, recording every second. Her humiliation was no longer confined to the hospital walls. It had become a public trial under the full light of scrutiny. Amelia sat back on the bed, tears still falling. But they were no longer tears of weakness. In her eyes now burned determination, knowing that justice had begun to take her side. Her father placed a firm, comforting hand on her shoulder, his voice deep and reassuring. "You don't have to be afraid anymore. He will pay for everything." The millionaire hung his head, his shoulders shaking. The man who once presumed power over everyone was now nothing more than a broken figure, surrounded by the truth, justice, and the scorn of those who once feared him. After all the chaos and tension, the hospital room began to calm down. The constant beeping of the fetal monitor continued, but this time it was no longer frantic. It was serene and rhythmic, like a reassuring lullaby. Amelia was on the bed, her eyes still swollen with tears, but her gaze shone brighter than ever. Beside her, her father stood like an unbreakable wall, while the millionaire was escorted away by security under the attentive eyes of everyone. The crowd in the hallway watched in silence. Some nodded quietly, as if they had just witnessed justice being served. The mistress was separated from the scene, her head bowed, stripped of the arrogant smile that once mocked the victim. The small world inside the hospital had changed. The heavy air was gone, replaced by the belief that justice still existed. The father sat down next to his daughter, taking her hand gently. His voice softened. It was no longer harsh as when he confronted the abuser. "You did very well. You stayed strong. And from now on, you will not be alone. Let me take care of the rest." Amelia pressed her lips together, fresh tears falling. But this time, they were not bitter tears of despair. They were tears of liberation. She whispered, "I thought I would live in the shadows forever. But today, I know that the truth will always find its way to speak." A doctor approached. He checked the monitor and smiled reassuringly. "The baby is stable. There's no danger. You can rest easy." His words eased the weight in the room. A nurse placed a warm blanket over Amelia's trembling shoulders. Outside, the videos of the incident were already spreading. Posts filled with outrage and solidarity multiplied on social media. Thousands of comments condemned the millionaire. The media labeled it a scandal that had shaken the city, showing the true face of a man once considered a model of success. His career was officially over. Meanwhile, Amelia rested her head on her father's shoulder, her heart calmer than it had been in years. She no longer thought about the days of control, the blows, the humiliation. She only thought about the future, a future where her child would grow up with love and true protection. The father's voice was firm, filled with a serene strength. "Rest now. Tomorrow, you'll begin a new chapter, a chapter with no trace of fear." The hospital room seemed illuminated by a different light, not the cold neon of the ceiling, but a warm glow of faith and liberation. Amelia closed her eyes. Her breathing was steady, her heart filled with new strength. The story ended with the image of a woman who was once knocked down, but now stood tall. She was no longer a victim, but proof of the power of truth and justice. As she drifted off to sleep, she whispered a final line, like a final verdict. "No power can ever hide the truth." What do you think was the true cost of the millionaire's arrogance? Could he ever regain his power, even with all his money? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, please give it a thumbs up and share it to spread the word that no one should ever live in fear. Thank you for watching.